I bought Gary Brucka and his wife's business. It was a little $1.8 million business. And then I told Gary, if you go through our stages program and our training program on how to speak, and we'll put you on our stage. And that was the first stage Gary Brucka had ever been on. The odds of building a business from 0 to 100 million in 20 years from bootstrap, no invested capital, no debt, is 0.01%. I've done $200 million plus companies in less than 60 months.
Meet Brandon Dawson, entrepreneur, scaling expert, best-selling author, and co-founder of Cardone Ventures and the 10X Health System.
Join us to break down practical strategies for rapid and sustainable business expansion.
Grant and I are a very dangerous combination because we launched that business, and my pitch was in the first 5 years, we'll do $125 million from startup, and we did $124 million in revenue, right on target.
I want you to introduce yourself as the 5-year-old Brandon Dawson. Who was that?
Oh, well, yeah. A majority of the people out hawking programs are entire bullshitters. I mean, they are so fraudulent.
You're dealing with so many people with so many egos.
We both have friends that are very wealthy, but they're unhealthy. They would give all their money to feel normal again. I'd rather be less rich and more healthy.
Now you're just like involved in everything, man. What made you want to get into the wellness sector? Why wellness?
Well, it's a good question.
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada. And as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world to talk about health, wellness, beauty, and mindset. Today we have a guest. You see him all over the world. I mean, this guy here is just making sure anyone who's in business is being elevated. He's not just a business coach. He's the coach who coaches the coaches who coaches the coaches. He makes experts. He could get you to actually 10X your business, take it from 0 to 100. He's involved not just on the real estate side, he's also involved in the longevity space. You guys know who this guy is. I don't have to explain any further. Who do we have here today? This is the CEO and co-founder of Cardone Ventures and 10X Health Systems. We have Brandon Dawson. Brandon.
Let's go.
All right.
Let's go. Let's
Awesome,
go, man. You got a wild crew in here, Sam. Wild.
That's how we do it here, man. That's how we do
indeed,
it.
dude. It is so good to see you. It's been, we run into each other, but it's been 3 years since I've been in your offices here. So it's great to circle back and get to spend some time with you.
Yeah, man. Likewise. And, you know, it's, it seems like, we never detach from each other because we're so active on social media. Like I'm always seeing how you're moving around. You're on the other side of the world doing stuff in, Dubai and, the different countries out there with 10X Health. And you guys are doing some amazing stuff, man. But Brandon, but the first thing I want to do, man, I want people to get to know you. Not the Brandon Dawson who's here today. I want you to introduce yourself as the 5-year-old Brandon Dawson. Who was that guy?
Oh, well, the 5-year-old.
Yeah, the 5-year-old.
Yeah, a little kid growing up in Jefferson, Oregon. Very small population. All of my family, my dad's side, my mother's side, they were all from Jefferson, Oregon.
Nice.
And so as a 5-year-old, I lived there until I was 8, and then my parents divorced, and I moved to Minneapolis with my mom and my stepdad. And he was an entrepreneur, but he was a broke entrepreneur. And so for the first couple of years in Minnesota, I used to sleep on a couch in a 1-bedroom apartment. And but he invented the in-ear hearing aid and tried to get everybody to buy it. They wouldn't. But by the time I turned 12 and 15, I moved back to Oregon, lived with my dad and my stepmom because their business had started taking off. And so I wasn't doing very good in school in the 5th grade and 6th grade, so I needed some stability. So I moved back to Corvallis, Oregon, where I was raised on a walnut orchard and went to a little private Christian school with 35 people in my class. And,
Oh, wow.
And I knew when I graduated high school that I wanted to get the heck out of Oregon and go do something. And that was kind of my first move to growing up and doing my own thing.
Absolutely. Amazing, man. And then, so fast forward to today.
Yeah.
Now you're just like involved in everything, man. And one of the big things that you're involved in, it's not just the Cardone Ventures side of the real estate that a lot of people know Cardone Ventures for. It's the 10X Health System. So, I mean, you guys have made a tremendous impact with what you guys are doing. The word is just reaching everyone around the world. What made you want to get into the wellness sector? Because you know, looking at your former history of you know the businesses that you've scaled and you've exited huge multipliers. Why wellness?
Well, it's a good question. It's interesting. So, you know, there's three parts to our business. When I met Grant Cardone, he had the real estate business and then he had the training business. What I brought to him was my expertise in growing and scaling and exiting businesses at high values. And wellness is because my first company, when I was 29, I took it public, and it was a private equity backed roll up strategy where I bought 136 businesses in 3 years, and it was in the hearing care space.
Mm.
So I was in healthcare. It was just on the fringes. It was specialty healthcare. And when that business sold, and I started a new company, Audigy Group, the one I sold for $151 million. That was in hearing care as well, but it was also in allergy, ENT, otology. So it's hearing, allergy, and managing ENT otology centers, group practices, and individual locations. So I started moving into the fringes of well care with allergy treatment. So we automated the allergy identification and treatment process. And so, you know, I believe heavily in process, and I also understand the complexities of healthcare because of all the different state rules and regulations, the federal rules, regulations, the dynamics in these rules and compliance shifting and changing in real time. And so it was kind of a natural thing for me when my wife and I partnered with Grant Cardone in 2019. And our approach to Grant was, hey, you're an expert in real estate. You are leading crowdfunding. I innovated what I called a reverse merger crowdfunding system, where I brought a bunch of business owners into my business and managed them and then shared equity and upside with them. And so he and I shared the vision for crowdfunding, me for business and him for real estate. So it was a perfect fit.
Nice.
And so we combined forces, partnered in 2019. And my pitch to him was, because, you know, of course, that was at Marlin Stadium, 34,000 people. I said, I'm a business scaling expert. If we partner, we'll help your clients, your community grow and scale businesses. And it's something that nobody's doing in the marketplace. And the ones that are, they're good. They understand for the real ones. Because I noticed when we did our due diligence in social media, I came out of traditional business and then previous private equity. I just noticed there was a lot of people creating a lot of videos on how to start and grow businesses that it was crystal clear to me that they actually didn't know what they were talking about.
Mm.
So I told Grant, I just see a first mover opportunity in this space. And he embraced that. We launched that business. And my pitch was, in the first 5 years, we'll do $125 million from startup, no invested capital, no debt. I don't need any money from you. I don't want any money. I'm not putting any money in. We're both wealthy, so we can live off of our profits and do something great for the community. And so he was all in, and we launched that business exactly in the middle of 19, and we just finished our 5th year in business, and we did $124 million in revenue, right on target. Nice. But in the middle of that, 4 years ago, how I got in the wellness space is COVID. And so a couple friends of mine got me into a couple of these innovative healthcare companies where all of a sudden I'm getting IVs, they're doing my blood, they're putting me on peptides to keep me healthy during COVID, because we never stopped working.
Okay.
And we were running events we were just doing them underground, because I wasn't going to have the government tell me I can't do my business.
Right.
But I didn't want my team or I to get sick. So we started getting IVs all the time. And I had a business in Arizona and one here in Fort Lauderdale, actually, a friend of mine owned. And so every time I was feeling a little run down, I go in and get my checkup and get my IV and get my NAD and get my boo-boo-boo, my DDD.
All the good stuff.
And then that's where I met you. And so I told Grant, look, our first in-house, instead of working with clients, business I'm going to start is in the preventative side of the business, the longevity side, the get as far in front of healthcare, because, you know, we spend $14,500 per capita in the United States. We rank 167th in healthcare, next to freaking like Vietnam and everything that spends $100, right? It's just it's pathetic and it's ridiculous. And I was also a CEO of a Canadian healthcare company at one point, and their systems whacked. And so it was like, there has to be a better way.
Right.
And then the way it's contrived and manipulated by regulatory and big pharma and all the healthcare payers, and It's just something I've been around because when I was launching my business in 1996, this new idea for healthcare started, and it was called Physician Practice Management Groups, PPMs. And so when I was raising capital, that was the buzzword on Wall Street, these new medical groups where management companies would come in and work with independent doctors, and they would automate them, and they'd get them on systems, and they'd help them put their teams in place. And that was a huge fad for about 4 or 5 years. And the PPMs that actually got big got acquired by hospital systems because they were like, this is a threat. So I watched the hospital systems literally because I manage ENT, otology, and allergy centers, and I watched how they position the marketplace by grabbing the third-party payer contracts, forcing everybody into Medicare and Medicaid laws because all the big payers adopted those rules, which made it so difficult for the small business owner or physician to stay in business.
Wow.
And so the small business owner physician would try to compete against the hospitals, and they just couldn't do it. So the hospitals ended up putting so much pressure on them. The next move in private practice physician specialty groups was to form large groups. So they went from 1 or 2 man ENT locations, right? Owning their own business, working a day rotation in the hospital.
Right.
To group practices where you had 10 or 12 or 15 or 18 ENTs form a group practice contracting with the hospital. Well, then the hospital made it almost impossible for them to get reimbursed for any amount of money if it was done in the group practice. So they said, if you use our ER and surgery centers, we'll pay you more. So they sucked them into the hospitals.
Oh, wow.
And then the group practices became worth less and less. And then the hospital systems acquired them because they got the contracts from the third-party payers. So what they've effectively done in collaboration with third-party payers, the insurance companies, is they've eliminated all their competition in medical.
It's crazy.
And they sucked all these doctors into being slaves to the hospitals. And now what does the hospital do? Well, if you need to go in and get an MRI, in an independent place, you're going to spend $900. You go to the hospital to do it, they're going to bill you $10,000.
That's crazy.
It's all contrived. It's all manipulated. It's all about economics, which means as an individual consumer of that system, you're pretty much screwed. So seeing that, I didn't want to play in that sandbox.
Right.
But getting involved and being healthy with the IVs and with the longevity methodologies and with NAD and all the things we were doing and getting my blood tested and running it like my body like a business, which was clear to me. Like I look at my P&Ls every month. I look at my quarterly. I do my annual reviews, right? I make decisions off of facts, data, and information. And I'm like, man, this is how the human body needs to be run. I get this.
Right.
I got it. So I told Grant, we're going to build the greatest longevity, wellness, and get so far in front of it that we won't even call it healthcare. We will basically call it human optimization and longevity. It won't have anything to do with healthcare because you don't need healthcare if you're healthy.
Right.
And he was like, dude, this sounds exciting. And then he introduced me to Gary Brecka. So I bought Gary Brecka and his wife's business. It was a little $1.8 million business. They were paying themselves $100,000 a year. And they were running between Naples and Miami here. And so I told Gary, look, you're running yourself ragged. They'd been doing about $1.8 million for 4 years. They weren't making much money. They were clearly overwhelmed. And so I bought his wife's business. And then I told Gary, look, I'll make you if you go through our stages program and our training program on how to speak, and we'll put you on our stage. And that was the first stage Gary Brecka had ever been on.
Wow.
It was exactly 4 years ago I bought that little $1.8 million business. And then I did what I do best. Gary actually flourished and prospered. He's a phenomenal communicator.
He really is.
Gary,
I might have to sign up for that.
Yeah.
Program that you have.
Let me tell you, Gary and I had our differences, and we resolved them. But I've never actually met a better communicator yet to simplify the complexity. And he gets a lot of heat for it from the medical community. And I understand because this is part of our problem is that he got a little bit too excited about all the things he wanted to talk about. And I'm a huge compliance person. And so when it's our brand and you're on the fringes of saying things that could be misconstrued from a compliance standpoint, I needed to put separation there. But nonetheless, he's done such a phenomenal job for himself and for our company. But we went from 1.8 million in our first year to 25 million, then 75 million, then 120 million. We'll do 140 million. And now we just launched in 46 countries.
Amazing.
And we're going to innovate the complete process from precision nutrition, so you can eat the right things, ingest the right things. We're going to augment that with our precision IVs. We're the only one in the world that can do precision IVs. It's based on the genetic testing process we use. Then it drives a prescriptive value depending on the gaps in your genetics, and then augmented with our precision supplementation, which are manufactured specifically for you every 90 days. They fluctuate based on your blood, based on your genetics. They're stabilized, and then as we test for blood, we change the 100 nutrients that dissolve through our microbead process. We're the only ones in the world that have that as well. And so we're super excited because we now can do our IVs in 46 countries. Our supplements can be shipped to 46 countries. And we've got some huge global announcements coming out over the next 90 days that will position us as the leader in that business in the world.
Amazing.
And so we're super, super excited.
And I know, the CEO of Revive, Sarah Lomas, she's on the leadership.
She's my partner.
Right. You guys have a strategic
She's
partnership.
our partner, I should say.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, she's on the leadership advisory board with the American IV Association that I'm the chairman of, which we did that specifically, which, 10X Health is one of the founding members. Your new president sits on
Kent,
the board.
Yes.
And, we're doing that to position the industry just because there's so many regulations in different states and everything else. But I've seen what you guys are doing on the precision side. And I want to talk about the importance of precision versus what we've been so used to in the medical industry of more of this algorithmic type of treatment. You come in with a cough or flu, and all of a sudden you just get this certain antibiotic or whatever. Precision is specific to the individual. Is there a reason why you guys decided to go more of that precision route?
Yeah, I mean, the innovation in healthcare is precision healthcare.
Right.
It's a healthcare. When you say this algorithmic approach, it's actually been a manipulated algorithmic approach because it's all driven towards the pharmaceutical solution, chemicals. And that's the problem with healthcare is it's so contrived, it's so manipulated. And I think what we're going to continue to find is that physicians have been trained to communicate and treat in a very manipulated fashion. And they've been tricked into all the data and science to do it. And so they put everybody on drugs and they tell everybody this is the way you need to be. But you and I both know that if you get on the front end of that and you don't get sick, you don't need the drugs.
Right.
So one of the things that we've seen all over the globe is that nutrition is still in the eye of the coach and the beholder. So if you think about how trainers train, if you think about how you get coached on nutrition, in fact, the whole nutrition approach from the US has been almost a false narrative.
It has.
And even if it wasn't false, what the government's making growers with food do, they're putting chemicals and forcing us to ingest stuff that's grown in chemicals that we don't even know what's on it. So you might think you're eating organic, but it's been sprayed with a bunch of stuff that's got chemicals and poison. And so when you boil it down to the ability for a human being to choose, what do I want to put in my body? What do I not want to put in my body? Who's a trusted advisor? Who's a trusted provider?
Right.
All those things didn't exist because technology did not exist in order to map to original source. But with the advancement of blockchain, you can now track something from the minute it goes into the ground, what's put on the ground, because it's tested, how it comes out of the ground, how it's processed, where it goes, who touches it. And so the choices to be able to have precision in your life are now available. And we wanted to augment that additionally with supplementation and with IVs and things that you put in your body based on your genetic disposition. Because this is the thing. All healthcare and all guidance and all advice up to maybe 2 years ago was based on generalities.
Right.
Even how they test for body weight and composition and what you should or shouldn't do and all. And then what that does is it creates all these fads, juicing and keto and this and that and whatever. But if you don't know at the genetic level what is good or bad for your body, then everything you're trying to do could inadvertently be entirely working against you.
Right.
And it could be hurting you potentially. And so then that pushes you back into mainstream healthcare where all of a sudden you have some issue because you're ingesting coffee when caffeine, based on your genetics, is something that over time could kill you or damage you. It's not good for you. But they tell you one good cup a day, it's okay, a little caffeine. Well, that's not true. There are people that have a genetic disposition that caffeine kills them.
Yeah.
But they don't know it.
That's actually me.
Okay,
I don't
so
metabolize coffee properly.
There you go.
And I only figured that out through the genetic test. I was like, hey,
Yep.
that's why I can't, I'm not that guy who can have, multiple cups of coffee in a day. I just don't feel right. So it's interesting that you say that.
And my big wake up was, here I am trying to always be healthy. And we have 10X Health, and we're always looking for, as we're getting bigger, the reason that I talk about those revenue growths is because we went from basically 1,000 customers to 250,000 in 4 years. And then when Sarah and I'm the largest investor into Revive, we now are the majority owner of Revive. And so she has 11 years of life sciences in 46 countries in order to get approved to do the IVs. And then we piggybacked on top of that with the supplementation. She has 11 years of life sciences studies.
Right.
And it shows what happens when you treat somebody with IVs and you're attacking it at a genetic level, and then augmenting it in real time with whatever's going on in the blood, right? That's kind of the business's P&Ls. You can see what's really happening. What's crazy is what happens when somebody gets these precision IVs and stuff. But for me, at first I'm like, okay, is this stuff real? Like, how am I going to apply it? My 400-page report came back, and it said that one of the worst things for me genetically is watermelon. And this is the thing every night I would go home and have cubed in my fridge.
No way.
Because I was always told it was 99% water.
Wow.
Right? And so I did that because I don't eat ice cream or anything else. As soon as no kidding, as soon as I cut off watermelon and went to green grapes, I dropped 20 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm like, all this work I've been doing on treadmills and all this stuff.
The watermelons was messing
Frickin' watermelon and a handful of other things that I didn't even know about, right?
That's amazing.
So if you're doing things that work against your body, it clogs your system.
Right.
And if you do things that work with your body, it opens it up. It's literally that simple. And if your body's open and you're putting the right things in it, you feel amazing all the time, and you can augment that with the right nutrients and supplements. Great IVs, these precision IVs, man, you feel like you could fly for a week because it just tops your body off everywhere where you're deficient. And getting people off drugs and stuff, getting them off chemicals is really our mission. And that's Grant and Elena Cardone's mission. And that's why you're like, we're going to launch a healthcare company. It's going to get people off of drugs. It's going to get them off of chemicals. It's going to optimize their life. It's going to make them feel unbelievably successful because we both have friends that are very wealthy, but they're unhealthy.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, there's no amount of money my friends that are now dying or having disease or incapable of doing things because of all the damage that's been done to their body, they would give all their money to feel normal again.
Right.
Not great, because great is really normal. You just forgot how to feel normal. But they would give all their money to feel normal again because they're living in pain and they're living with depression and they're living with things because they can't move around. They can't enjoy their money. So to me, I'm like, I'd rather be less rich and more healthy. That was a pivot for me about 4 years ago when some of my mentors, because I'm 57, when I started my first business, I was 26. So all the guys that were 55 years old that were my mentors that were wealthy are all now in their 80s.
Wow.
And the guys I used to run around with, play golf with, they had all this energy. Some of them are barely moving around now.
That's great.
But I have a couple that are like 84, 85, 86 that always maintain their health. They act like they're 57 still.
Wow.
So they're an inspiration to me. And what I want to do, I've got a wife that's half my age. I want to live till I'm 125 years old.
It can happen, man, with the technology.
I believe
we
it.
have
I
today.
believe we'll see it.
That's the power of what you guys are doing on taking that personalized approach.
Yep.
Which I like to divide things into three categories, which is prevention, early detection, and treatment intervention. Which you guys have all of that. Brandon, you and Natalie, man, you guys had this tremendous health success story, which is all over social media. You know, in my opinion, you look younger, and your energy is even of a younger person than what it was just a few years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there something that triggered you to make like that choice to like go all in and be where you're at today, health-wise?
Well, first of all, they told me at 29 I burnt out my adrenaloids. You got to understand, at 26 I left a job with 2 babies, started my own company, traveled and had to raise money and buy businesses and figure all this out and go public. And it all sounds fun, but it was a disaster on my body because of the pressure and the stress of trying to figure out how to make payroll and always being broke and trying to figure out how to raise more money in order to bridge the next thing. And so at 29, my doc's like, man, you've burnt out your adrenalides. You're fried. And
Wow.
so, and I was heavy. I was like 240 pounds because I was always out eating and drinking at night and just trying to deal with all the pressure, right? And so after I got wealthy, right? I would go in these bouts about every 5 years. I was huge into CrossFit, lost a lot of weight. I was in great shape for about 6 years. And then when I sold my business, I was back doing global expansion. So I was always traveling, going all over the world. We took a $1 billion company in 3 years to $4.5 billion. So I wasn't really taking care of myself. I was more traveling all over the world, going to different countries and wining and dining and, being in the office all the time with people. And so once I decided, I'm finally wealthy, when I put 100 million in the bank, I was like, okay, look, I'm not going to die now. I'm not going to work to where I'm going to die. That was one thing.
Right.
That was whatever I do next, I'm not going to kill myself doing it. So that was kind of the decision. And then when we got into the 10X thing, I started working out again and started training again and started losing weight. And then the longevity guys I was working with started optimizing me, and I started feeling great. And then Brecca and I started hanging out, and Brecca got me on a diet and was like doing my food for me, and we were having fun. That's how we built our relationship. And he was already working with Grant, and we became friends. And then he would like push on me to do different things, and I started dropping more weight. And then the genetic stuff came out, and so working with Brecca on that, started doing things for how my body methylates and all this.
Right.
And so it was just like incremental. And I believed it. I believed everything I was doing. And I started working with those 2 longevity centers. And Gary at the time was just doing IVs and running back and forth. And he had just come up with this whole methylation idea. And so it was very early on. But I believed in it because I was feeling it. And I looked at my partner who's 10 years older than me and is in phenomenal shape, Grant Cardone. Right. And so I was like, then I made this decision. If I'm going to be 10X, I have to look 10X.
Right.
I have to feel 10X. And once I started looking at my body the way I look at financials for a business, where daily, monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, there's a certain way I have the numbers produced in order for me to have very specific predictability in the business. And that's how I can do so many businesses so fast. I mean, the odds of building a business from 0 to 100 million in 20 years from bootstrap, no invested capital, no debt, is 0.01%. The odds of building a $100 million business the same way in 5 years is 0.001%. The odds of building $200 million businesses bootstrapped with no invested capital, no debt over 60 months is incalculable if you try it on ChatGPT because it says it can't happen. It just doesn't happen. I've done $200 million plus companies in less than 60 months. So to be able to have the energy in 2 entirely different industries, doing the complexity of both is entirely different. And I got 3 more coming. So the point is, people say, how do you have the energy to do that? Well, when you feel amazing, like I feel literally every day I spring out of bed and I go to midnight, I sleep 6-7 hours. I wear my wearables, so I see what's going on with my sleep.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I'm like, man, this is a data guy. Everything he does is all about data.
Yeah, because I'm like on this quest to anti-age. And like you said, 5 years ago when I met you, I was 238 pounds. I'm now under 200. I sleep like a baby. We are all over the world, different time zones. I never miss a beat. When I land somewhere, I'm in the game. I don't have the sleep deprivation. I don't have jet lag. When I get home, I land and I go straight to events. I'm in the game. And it's because the supplementation that keeps me topped off. And then when I start to feel like my batteries are going down, I just go hit the precision IV or maybe a little NAD. And now what's cool is when you and I were looking at NAD and stuff 4 years ago together, 3 years ago, now there's all the sprays, the patches, the the stuff you can put in your mouth, like it's becoming more mainstream, and the methodologies in order to ingest it and get it in your system are becoming more advanced.
Right.
Man, I am so freaking excited, dude, because I get to see hundreds of thousands of people working with 10X Health that are also our clients coming through losing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100
That's
pounds.
amazing.
And when you're doing that, and then you can go back to focus on the wealth side, I watch people that were told because of cancer and stuff, you're going to die. 6 months later, they don't have cancer anymore. There's so many great technologies coming out in the marketplace. There's so much hope for human beings. And that's for people who are already sick. For people who aren't sick, there's even more hope that you never have to get sick. So what drives me is my partners, Grant and Elena Cardone, and my wife, Natalie. We made a mission that we want to have a business that has an opportunity to touch 8 billion people. And I knew the only way that you're going to do that is through healthcare. And then it has to be well care. It has to be preventative. It has to have such a strong pull to it. That polarity has to scream to a human being. If you do these things, you could live happier, healthier, longer with no disease.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they're not going to do it because human nature is to default to what's comfortable.
Right.
And if you're going to change your life, you have to be committed to being uncomfortable. But if the rewards are so great, you're willing to make that investment. And that's why we're in this business, because what we're seeing, and if you think on the very front end, you identify with your genetics, you then identify and change in real time with your blood. Then you get on supplements that can optimize you as a human being, because most people are taking supplements that have garbage in it, have poison in it.
Right.
They're taking supplements that cancel each other out. They're taking supplements, they're spending all this money and taking handfuls of supplements that they're just pissing out because their body cannot use those supplements because their genetics don't allow the absorption of those supplements. And so you got all this stuff going on, and people trying to search and create their own ideas and buy things off the internet that are horrible for them. We want to create a certified product portfolio, and it starts with precision supplementation. It starts with personalized supplementation. So depending on your budget, you could do either, right? We have a 5-SNP methylation, and then we have 55, which covers a majority of your body's, how you process. And then we drive a nutrient table. We have the global patents on that. So if anybody tries to take genetics and blood to drive nutrition, they're violating our global patents. That's going to be an interesting business all by itself,
Right.
because this is where the whole market's going. And so the idea here is if you are putting the right things at the right time from the right people in your system, and you can be optimized as a human being, now you can go to precision with peptides.
Wow.
With all the advancements of peptides, which I know you and I are heavily into in our businesses. Then from peptides, you can go into specific cellular therapies, which Florida just passed the first one to do it. We've been having to send people all over the world to get their cellular therapy. And you and I have both seen people go from being told they got to get surgery to having no issues after one shot.
And it's crazy you bring that up, because that's actually something I was going to bring up to you, because that just passed July 1st.
That's right.
Right. And right now I got some of the top like stem cell scientists that are they're moving here to Florida because of it. And you and I both know all of the wealthy guys have been getting on the private jets and going to all of these other countries. Do you see yourself getting involved in that regenerative?
Well, we're in regenerative. We've been in regenerative. We just have to send people out of the country.
Right.
And so the fact is that not only do I see myself getting involved, if you look at the 10X Health portfolio, and we had a bumpy ride. Like, I have a lot of people that are like, oh, people couldn't order your tests, and you guys, horrible service. And this is all true. I mean, I cannot deny.
Well, you guys grew very quickly.
We went from zero to a $125 million company based on demand in 36 months.
Right.
And you know this better than anybody else. There's no systems. Every one of these pharmacies 3 years ago was running on their own proprietary system, and they wouldn't let you API into it. Every testing company was running on their own proprietary system, and you couldn't API into it. So all we would get at best case is an email saying our customer's order went out and our customer's order's been received. But when it went out, who it went to, when it's coming back, who it got delivered back to, they wouldn't API us. So we were interreliant on only email systems of other people's horrible systems.
Right.
Oh my God. I've never had a bigger challenge in my life. Let me just tell you. Our Trustpilot scores went to 1. I mean, it was horrible. But because of the strength of what happens when people actually go on the platform, we still built a huge business with 250,000 patients.
Right.
And so when you think of the spectrum of care, right? What 10X Health wants to be known for is we have the only SaaS-based product that formulates precision IVs and personalized IVs. And this is the work Sarah's been working on. It's been $110 million building. That's why we bought it all and partnered with them. And so we combine that with best practices of scalability for a human being, just like I would with business. And we applied the same methodologies I created for businesses to use that we've now run over $10 billion of businesses through over in Cardone Ventures for our 10X Health business. But instead of it being a business entity, it's a human body entity, right? So if you go on the very front end and you're ingesting the right things, you're eating the right foods based on your genetics that are prepared by people that aren't putting shit on it that are killing you, then you can augment wherever your body's deficient with normal daily routine supplementation that's certified. And then you could do that for personalized supplementation. Or you can go to precision supplementation. It's more expensive, but it's like you're topping off all the time with 100 nutrients every day. And then you have the IVs to top off what you can't top off with nutrients because your body won't work with them. Then you go to the peptides, and we have a certified product line for peptides. Then you go from the peptides to the cellular therapies, and absolutely, we're going to be a leader in all those categories. In fact, we have announcements coming out by between now and the end of the year in each one of those categories, which will position us as leaders around the world.
Amazing, man. And I want to put emphasis on something you said about that hiccup you guys had before. Listen, at the end of the day, if I have 100,000 new customers come through Liquavita, we're going to have hiccups. You know, the marketing went a little bit too well, right? So it's going to happen. It's part of that growth. And you guys partnering up with Sarah, with Revive, has been able to help stabilize that. And you guys are going massive, man.
She is a visionary. Let me tell you something.
Smart.
She's a remarkable
Very smart,
human
right?
being, and she had a vision that nobody else really believed in for the first 8 years, right?
Yeah.
But that vision right now, because what she had to do to get IVs approved around the world, she did all the work for anybody that wants to do IVs with the
Going to
equivalent
jail,
of the FDA. That's right.
Yeah, you know,
There's countries where if you do glutathione, you go to jail.
Yeah. Right.
So, and they were forbidden.
Yeah.
We are now certified to the equivalent of the FDA in 46 countries and approved to do business. And so she pioneered that space almost single-handedly
And that's not
with
easy
her
at
investors.
all. That's not easy.
No.
Like you're dealing with the Ministry of Health of other countries that they don't even think about medicine the way that we're even talking about at all.
Nothing.
So now, Brandon, you mentioned something earlier, man, that part of your goal is to get people off medications, right? And if we were like about 4 years ago, I'd actually kind of be scared to say that.
Yeah.
Which I know there's a picture of you and Donald Trump on your social media page, you know, new administration. We got a huge movement going on right now, the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again.
Mm-hmm.
What's your input with that and RFK Jr., what he's doing?
Well, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor. And I think for people that know me, I get, my haters on Instagram, right, and social media, they're like, oh, Grant's boy, because they don't even know my experience. They're just trying to find cheap shots. And they always call me Grant's CEO, right? They think I run everything, which is even more comical because Grant's like a genius when it comes to real estate. I don't play in that game, right? I invested with Grant.
Right.
The fact is I have several very specific anchored in material relationships. And Gary's also part of that group. And so, and he's a big voice. And that's actually where we were going together. And then you can't, there's a problem when you have a brand that does business and then you have a voice that has a huge opinion. And those two things start to sometimes conflict from a liability standpoint. And that's what we were bumping up against. But he has done a phenomenal job and he's part of that group. And so I think we all agree, we can disagree on certain business things, but we can all agree healthcare has to change.
100%.
And there's enough strength now under DJT. There's enough strength under our president with the right people balance each other out, because there are some swinging opinions, right? But there's enough of those people to drive consensus. And they have the data. And the thing is that there's enough data to prove that we were all tricked. Not all of us, though, because there was a lot of us that withheld and stood out and resisted what they were trying to get us to do. But what they've done is they've gotten sneaky, and FDA started putting in our food sources. Mm-hmm. And so they find different ways to get what they want. And what these guys are all doing, and ladies, these experts as a group of people for this country are coming together to say enough is enough. Enough manipulation with Monsanto and the government, enough manipulation with the FDA shutting down all the processing centers. So we also have 10X farms and ranches, because they're forcing these farmers and ranchers to shut down their processing facilities by telling them you can't sell your meat if you don't go through an FDA-approved facility, and the FDA-approved facility inject the meat with all the stuff that we don't want to ingest.
Right.
So all these things have been going on, and it's been behind the scenes contrived. Same with food sources and the shit you spray on our vegetables and how they're being forced off. Farmers are being shut down with regulation. The stuff they're putting in milk. I mean, come on, dude. Like, none of that stuff needs to be there. It's not there anywhere else in the world. It doesn't need to be here.
Right.
There's a reason you can go to Europe and you can eat pizza and you can eat pasta and you can drink milk and dairy, and you don't get bloated and you don't feel like crap and you don't feel like you can't get out of bed in the morning. It's because they don't put all the stuff that this government has been allowing or forcing to be put into our food sources. So do I think the MAHA movement? Oh, yeah, 100%. It's going to go deeper and just make America healthy. It's going to go into deregulation of false regulation to contrive and manipulate us as human beings in this country, because Donald J. Trump is not going to tolerate that anymore.
Right.
And it's a dangerous position. If you and I would have had this conversation 4 years ago, we probably would have been raided and thrown in jail. Honestly.
You're not kidding. I mean, that's the truth.
But we now have freedom of speech back, and we have a freedom of opinion. And people who don't like people with opinions are going to be critical of you and I having this conversation. There'll be medical people out there being critical of us. But the truth is, if you stop following and being a robot, you actually step back and get the facts and look at the food sourcing and look at what the FDA was doing and look at what they were doing to these growers and look what they've been doing to the farmers and look what they were doing to. If you just step back and see enough of it instead of your own little tiny world, you realize how much manipulation was going on and where the money was flowing.
Right.
And I think these Democrats, I think they got to have some answers here on how they became so wealthy while pushing these initiatives into the marketplace.
Yeah. Very well said, man. Very well said. Brandon, I know initially when you guys got into the 10X health system, you guys were going the franchise route. Is there any particular reason why you decided not to push that 100%?
Yeah, because I have a lot of people. Look, I just want to be clear about the medical community. There are so many phenomenal doctors and physicians. They have been getting screwed over for the last 25 years. They have been getting pushed into a system where they're not even allowed to use their medical discretion for the most part, okay? Because once they become part of the hospital, they are not allowed to practice outside the scope of what the hospital demands. And this is why we all as consumers get all these treatments, because they're just being forced into things, right? So there's this new emergence of medical professionals that are actually enthusiastic and excited about concierge medicine or preventative medicine getting on the front end. And, 5 years ago, they called those doctors quacks. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you asked me about the franchise system. What I was finding difficult to do is bring modalities into medical practices where the doctors still wanted to be able to use their own discretion, because there's two doctors. There's the doctors that follow what the hospitals say and follow what the group practices say, and it's all driven by private equity and driven by economics. And then you have the physicians that want to practice their own way.
Right.
And those were the renegades. Well, for me to come in and say you have to change how you do your practice to conform to the 10X Health way, I just didn't feel that was the right thing to do. So what we did when we invested with Sarah is we flipped it from a franchise and out of fairness, if you want to co-brand, if you want to share economics, and if you want to share training, you're deemed a franchisor. You can't get around that. How you do get around it is a different methodology, which I figured out in my previous company that I sold. And so we're applying that methodology along with Sarah's license of our software, because we're a SaaS provider now.
Right.
So instead of you can use our brands through a license, and you can use it on the products and services that we're delivering through our hub, but we're not forcing you to have to use those. You can use at your discretion what you want. And so we went to a licensing route, and we went to what I call, because traditional private equity or hospital systems are what I call a cram down. So they buy you and then they shove everything down your throat and you don't have a choice. I've resisted that. The business I built that I sold for $151 million was a drawdown process. So I partnered with independent business owners and doctors, and they got to draw the resources or the products into their practice that they thought benefited their patient base.
Okay.
And I wanted to go back to that methodology, but I had no way to deliver it until I partnered with Sarah, because she had the SaaS product that she built, and we're the only ones on the planet that has it. So now our hub, anybody can be a licensee, anybody can sell, because at 10X Health, I don't really want to be a competitor to all these practitioners. I want to be, you remember the old commercial when Intel launched its chips and they showed everybody's computers and they said Intel inside? What I want 10X Health to be is I'm like the CPA for the business owners.
Yeah.
You can use our genetic testing processes. We'll send you the data. You can use our products, our services. You can leverage off our national medical team, but you can run your practice the way you want to run it without feeling oppressed by somebody. And if you feel great about what we're offering you and you feel great about how we're training you how to use it, you'll embrace it if it's the right thing to do for your patient. And I just didn't feel good with the franchise laws, because all the liability is being a franchisor.
Right.
So I hate the idea that I would ever tell an independent business owner, physician, or any business owner how to run their business.
Yeah.
I'd rather help them run it best. And so we flipped from franchise to that process. And we are just getting ready now that our infrastructure is getting put in. We're doing a $15 to $18 million technology innovation right now. That's going to take us about 15 months so we can be the first to marketplace with an end-to-end solution on this type of medical practice, with all the complexities of EMR systems, and because they're all built for hospitals,
Right.
and they're built to add complexity so you can't do what you want to do to run your little practice on it.
Right. Especially if it's a cash-based business.
Exactly.
You know, because all the other EMRs are like insurance-based. And Brandon, I'll tell you, man, I like what you guys have done. When it comes to franchising, it's a very. Let me take a step back. When it comes to franchising in the longevity space, especially when you're doing all of the comprehensive tests and all this treatment, it's a very complex model. You're dealing with all these different personalities, and even myself, because I have a division where we sell product to over 4,000 doctors, which a lot of them tune into this podcast. For me, it's just an easier business model, number one. And then number two, I can do what I'm most passionate about, which is really hitting the masses and making a change and impact in the wellness community. So, I'm actually adjusting a few things on the franchise side, to really have bigger impact, more on kind of how you said, on these other areas. Where
that's what I loved when I met you, and I saw how you were innovating. Because here at the end of the day, I've researched 10,000 businesses. We've innovated 10,000 businesses now. And I've broken down hundreds of verticals to understand what allows them to work and fail and all this stuff. When I met you, I was like, this dude is an innovator, and you also understand something. And here's when people ask me at the end of the day, what allows all the things I touch and work on, and the people I get to do it with, and the brilliant people I get to surround myself with. Because I'm actually just coming at you when you asked me about the 5-year-old Brandon. I barely made it out of high school. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any special credentials. I'm just really blessed to have had the courage to be willing to go out and fail over and over and over to learn the things I had to learn to be where I'm sitting today. But the absolute truth is I'm where I'm at today because of all the remarkable mentors I've accumulated in my lifetime of brilliant people that some of them are authorities around the world, like John Maxwell in leadership, or Sharon Lecter, Story Musgrave, the only astronaut that flew all 5 space shuttles designed, deployed, and fixed Hubble, mentored me for years on how to build the operating system we've built and deployed based on how NASA operates and trains and deploys and returns. And so I've been surrounded by brilliant people who have embraced me and loved me and given me information because I was interested in their works. I read their books and I was able to communicate the things I learned. And so I've evolved to being a prodigy of all these different experts from different places who have given me a little percentage of cross-pollination of amazing things. And because I realized the first time around I didn't do data research, the second and third and fifth time I just have the best research organization on the planet. And I don't do anything without research because it tells me exactly where to go. And I bring this up to say when I met you, the thing I saw what you were doing, the simplest way to succeed is to understand John Maxwell's definition of a leader. A leader, simplified, makes everything easier for other people. That's what a real leader does.
I love that.
And to the extent you're making things simple for other people, they'll follow you.
Yeah.
And when I met you, you took a complex thing of all these mixtures of stuff and people could screw them up and hurt people and damage them. And you simplified it so people would just say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and here's what we're going to do. And you productized it.
Right.
And it's hard to have a concept that's based around simplifying something for somebody else and giving them the opportunity to be able to provide something for somebody else without the potentiality of doing something wrong, right? And that's what you did. And I was like, this guy's a freaking genius.
I appreciate that.
And so being around, this is another thing for me to get to be around people like you. I get the privilege of being around all these entrepreneurs who are innovators. Most innovators never actually get to market. So I get the privilege to be around people like you that's an innovator and people like Sarah who got it to market. And I got to see how you had an idea, how you put the idea into something you could deliver to somebody, and how you got somebody to buy your idea and use your idea. Whereas most people have ideas that never amount to anything, or their ideas never get operationalized, or no one in the marketplace actually cares about their ideas, so they all go broke.
Right.
People don't realize how hard it is to do what I call completing a cycle. Ideation, production, delivery, customer, monetization. That's a completed cycle.
Right.
Most people wouldn't even know to think that way, right? But I've studied so many people like you, thousands and thousands and thousands, including multi-billionaires all the way down to the people that make 1 million to 10 million to 50 million. Because what I want to understand is, how does a guy like you do that? Even the ideation to podcast, media, all the things you're doing. How? Well, it's certainly not by accident. There are characteristics, qualities, attributes, competencies, belief system. All those things have to be aligned because it's so easy to say, I'm just going to give up.
Right.
Or I'm going to revert to something smaller.
Yeah.
And that's why I have respect for you and all the entrepreneurs out there pioneering and building. And that's really what I love to get to do. I am so blessed. So why wouldn't I stay healthy? Why wouldn't I? But I also knew if I couldn't prove to people that because if you look at this space I'm in, scaling experts, there's some great personalities out there that built businesses and sold them for 50 million or 100 million or 200 million. I'm friends with the legitimate ones. Like, I have so much respect for them because they're an entrepreneur that created the cycle, right? Finished and went through the whole cycle. But a majority of the people out hawking programs are entire bullshitters. Yeah. I mean, they are so fraudulent.
You're dealing with so many people with so many egos. I mean, I got to know what you do for your own mental health, because you're dealing with tons of different egos, and that can't be easy either.
I don't care. I honestly, I don't even think about. I don't think about any of those people. And the other thing is, I have a beautiful business partner.
Yeah.
And the reason I have a beautiful business partner is we sit around and have conversations. People attack us, and then he says, "Let me handle that. You don't even need to get in the middle of it. I got it." He loves that shit. And I don't need to worry about it. If somebody attacks me, my partner will destroy them. Because they're attacking a person they actually don't know anything about.
You know how Grant Cardone is, man? This is the way I put it. I told my buddies, I was like, he reminds me of the United States of America. Like, you don't mess with the USA. Why? Because we're ready to go. We got the arsenal, all the artillery.
100%. Like, I think you saw that.
You rub him the wrong way, he'll hit a button, and you're just destroyed.
I think you saw that with that guy that, what was he? He was the the T-Mobile guy or whatever that was talking shit.
Mhm.
Grant and I were playing backgammon one night, and he decides to go on some rant about Grant. And then Grant's like, all right, buddy, let's see how you can back your words up. And then what did he get out of it? He got an apology and some other settlement. And then now Grant and I are a very dangerous combination because Grant's a very vocal brute force. I am a behind the scenes
You're the strategy guy.
strategic guy.
Yeah.
So, in Gary's case, he started doing things that his contracts would not allow him to do. And I didn't intervene because I have tracers. If you're running on my system and you work for me, you can rest assured. So if anybody's wondering, I'm watching every email. So when an email comes into 10X Health saying, hey, we'd like you to speak, or hey, we want a joint venture with you, or hey, we want to do a product placement, and your 10X Health assistant sends it over to your other assistant saying, hey, this might be good for you guys to do, and then they copy them back saying, yeah, we're going to take this over here, even though it was something that somebody wanted to do with us, and then you filter off, $10-20 million, I'm going to know about it.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I know about it, I'm not going to say a word about it until I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so there was a combination of, this thing with Gary that was going on, and then his CFO resigned and validated every single thing we made claims on in his resignation letter because he realized he didn't want to be committing fraud.
Right. Right.
And this stuff gets pretty serious when you have fiduciary duties and you have laws and you have partnership responsibilities. And quite honestly, Gary had never had a business, so he didn't know about any of that stuff.
Right.
And so, the thing is that we resolved it, though. I want Gary to be able to go pursue the best version of himself. And we have to build a business that's centered around responsibility, ethics, morals, compliance. It's all stuff that it's very hard for anybody that has never lived in that world to actually be okay conforming to.
Right.
Most entrepreneurs, as you know, they struggle with that because it's overwhelming. And so, Gary was getting a cease and desist from our lawyer every 2 weeks because he'd say something on the podcast he can't say, and we had to cover our 10X brand, right? We had to protect our brand. And so he'd call me pissed off, and I'm like, Gary, I'm not actually like, I got to do it to protect our company.
Yeah.
And that tension just kept building and building and building because of the things he wanted to talk about and the things he wanted to do. And the consequence of that is if somebody wanted him to distribute their product, he would agree to do it. He wasn't allowed to.
Oh, wow.
So now we had conflict. And so the conflict bubbled up until we had to resolve it. We resolved it, but my partner jumped in the last minute, and he's like, I am going to now. Brandon's been holding me back. Let the process run the process. And he was out bashing us on podcasts.
Right.
And what he was saying was not true. And it was implicitly not true. And we had the evidence it was not true. And there was a new problem that was going to happen, which was a defamation case that was coming out and that I was getting ready to file. And I think we all agreed, you know what? Nobody needs this headache. Gary at the core is living his mission, and he's creating an impact. You can like him or dislike him, but for anybody that dislikes him, let me just say this. You ain't done anything to position yourself on a global stage as a communicator at the level he has.
Right.
So if you don't like him, just blame yourself for not working on your communication skills, starting a podcast like you have, and having the courage to go out and be controversial.
Facts.
Now, for the people that do like him, that's why he's successful, because he doesn't give a shit.
Right. Which there's a lot of people that love him.
And, we need somebody that doesn't care.
Right.
And he's willing to take the heat for that. So for me, I admire the courage to do that. It just is very difficult for me to build a business where half the heat includes potentially regulators. Yeah. So I had to be like, dude, we gotta just put some separation here. And we did. And it's been beautiful now because he's really flourishing and prospering as we are. And he's not with the company. He doesn't have any equity in the company anymore, but he still promotes the things he helped us build that he knows changes lives. That's what we all agreed on was the most important thing. Nice. So it's been a great opportunity for him and us.
Yeah. And one thing I'm going to highlight for all the business owners that are listening, the one thing that led you to where you're at right now, being able to figure all this out when it was happening, is having the ability to inspect what you expect by having those tracers and the email system and everything else. And that's the importance of having some strong systems and processes in place. I love that. Now that we're on the business side, man, I got to ask you this question because I've had certain business partnerships go south.
Yep.
And a lot of new business owners that are, building their companies, they start thinking about bringing new partners on board, sometimes close friends, families. What is one piece of advice that you can give if people are considering bringing a partner into their ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, there's different kind of partners, right? So if you start a business with a partner, that's one partnership. There's people that come along later and you make them a partner because you would hope and expect that they would contribute to the growth of the organization. And then there's partners like where you collaborate. Somebody does something, somebody else does something, and you put your businesses together, and now you do two things, right? So there's different types of partnerships. And what I would tell you is that one of the top 3 reasons businesses ultimately fail is partnerships. I'm doing one right now. These 2 dentists came together. They built a great empire. One dentist is retiring. The other dentist is young and upcoming. That brought 8 other doctors with them, and now they're the retiring doctor just wants to keep hanging on and splitting the profits, but he's not. The young doctor's like, I'm ready to go and get bigger, but you won't get. You're kind of in my way. And this always happens in partnerships, and then they split up and destroy the business in the process because it ends up like a bad divorce. So what I would tell people is this. The reason that I was so confident in whatever was happening with Gary is because I wrote all the documentation and I track everything and I pay attention. And when you take a guy that was making 80 grand a year and then he's last year working with you makes 11 million a year, right? Think about it. If you were working by yourself making 80 grand a year for 4 years, you joined with Grant and I, and you go to 2.5 million and then 5 million and 11 million is pretty good payday. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
So running around telling everybody you got screwed.
Yeah, that's not it.
The facts don't actually line up with it.
Right.
So I'm a guy that relies on the facts, not on the emotion, because high emotion's low intelligence.
Right.
So when people are running around espousing emotion, they're operating at the lowest level of their being, right? So the reason I bring this up is when there's pressure, when there's friction, when there's resistance, all that creates anxiety. And when people start operating with anxiety, the anxiety turns to fear. And when they're operating with anxiety that has fear, they react with anger. So what causes partnerships to go wrong is when people stop trusting each other. They stop communicating to each other. They lose affinity for each other, and they start focusing on each other versus, think about how stupid this is. You're in a town, you build a $5 million business, there's 2 of you there, and your marketplace is hundreds of billions of dollars, and you decide to take all your energy and focus it on fighting with your partner. So what I teach people to do is go battle a competitor in another market. Be grateful for what you built together, but if there is a partner that doesn't want to be a part of that anymore, you don't have to fight your other partner. Just say, I'm going to put the same energy, because what happens, you get one partner that's declining in the business and one that's doing more.
Right.
Well, the guy that's doing more or gal that's doing more gets pissed off at the other partner. Well, don't get mad. Just say, I'm going to match the same intensity you're putting into this, and then I'm going to go start something new. Everyone gets so stuck in their mind that they're stuck where they're at, So then what happens is they get so micro-focused on what somebody's taking from me. Man, nobody's been victimized in a partnership. You went into it with an open mind. You're working together. If you don't like it, grow up and just move on. Nobody's been kidnapped here, right? So they stop acting like adults, like they have freedom of choice, and they start blaming each other. And then that's where partnerships go bad. Right. Somebody starts blaming the other person. They start fighting. Then it turns to fear. Then it turns to anger. And then it destroys it. And everybody's captured in the middle. It's like a bad divorce.
Yep.
So what I tell people about partnerships is this. Know why you're getting into a partnership. Define the expectations for the partnership. Sometimes it's better to do a joint venture than a true equity split. Have an exit strategy. Have your prenup in place. It should be super simple. If we're not going to be partners anymore, this works one or two ways. I'm the partner that no longer wants to be your partner. I'm going to make you an offer. It's a shotgun provision. I'm going to make you an offer. You have one or two choices. You either have to accept my offer or you have to buy me out at my offer.
Right.
But what I can't do is come lowball you and expect you to sell to me. So whatever I offer you, I have to be contractually willing to take. So because all people are like, oh my God, you know what it does? It takes pressure off. Because if somebody's really like, I don't want to be your partner anymore, they have an out. And when you don't feel you have an out is where partnerships go bad. When you actually have an out, they don't go bad because you're like, well, do I really want to hit the nuke button? Is it really that bad? Well, we're actually doing okay. So forget it.
Yeah.
Because you have an out. It's the fact that you don't have an out and you have shitty legal advice and you both are stuck in a relationship you might not want to be in. That's the actual root cause. So if you build into the partnerships an out, like, hey, if you come into my business at 5 million and you end up taking 50% of my business, the minute you stop contributing under these things we defined you're going to do, I get to buy you back out. So if you help me take it from 5 to 10, now I exit you at a 10 million valuation. You get the value you helped me create. I'm going to go get a different partner.
Right.
But they don't do that. They just give their equity away, and then people start leaving with their equity. And eventually, you started a company, you own 20% of it, and everyone else has run off with your equity.
Right.
Now you're pissed and you're bitter. It's all bad structure. Most advisors, most guidance people, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. And then business owners find themselves all enthusiastic about starting something, and then when it works, then they're fighting over how they got there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Brandon, as we start wrapping up here, man, there's a podcast that I follow by the guy, his name is Stephen Bartlett. It's called The Diary of a CEO. Yeah. I love his podcast. And he came up with these conversation cards recently. So I want you to open it up. And
okay.
You can shuffle it, grab one card, read it, and answer it.
Okay, perfect. I'll just grab anything, right?
Yeah, as long as it's not the directions. Yeah, that's probably the wrong one. Just grab a different one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I grabbed something, nothing on it. Can't I just make it up?
The Joker card.
Let's go here. Okay, here we go. What is your biggest regret? And if you could go back, what would you do differently? This is a simple one for me because I always put things in 3 buckets: personal, professional, financial. Professionally, I wish I had gone to my board and asked them what they thought about the agreement I did, where I violated their agreement and allowed them to sell my company. Because it was one word I used. If I didn't use that word, I wouldn't have violated their agreement. They couldn't have forced me to sell it. And I used the word temporary. The word I used was debt, temporary debt. If I would have said rebate, prebate, advance, anything, it wouldn't have triggered their ability to sell my company, and I'd have been worth several $100 million long before 15, 18 years later. The biggest personal regret is just not learning how to balance my first business so I could be with my kids more. That sucked. Financial regret. I had a couple opportunities to invest in some early stage companies. I had a guy I was mentoring, for example, and teaching him in 2013. He had a $3 million business, and I had people offering to give me equity to be like their coach for their business. And there's 3 that I turned down. One is now a $7.8 billion company. I would have had 5% just for helping the guy. There's 2 or 3 deals like that where I missed out on hundreds of millions of dollars of additional net worth for myself. And I wish I had just thought about those things differently and slowed down a little bit because I was so busy. I kind of moved through things too quick. But ultimately, I regret that I just don't already have a $100 billion company working with millions of people around the world doing something so cool we could change lives and bring value to other people, because I feel like I have the talent to do it, and I'm frustrated I haven't done it yet. But I'm optimistic I'm going to do it.
Oh. Brandon, define legacy beyond financial worth.
You know, what I want for me is, I know my kids already think their dad's Superman because I've just created so much, right? I know my dad feels that way. For me, my legacy will be when 1 million business owners will be able to say the way I talk about John Maxwell, right? Or Grant Cardone, people that impact my life. I get emotional with this one. It's going to be them saying, Dawson changed our life, you know? And it could be on a personal level. It could be on a business level. It could be a net worth. I don't really care. I've saved marriages, dude, all day. Business partners splitting up and I get them back together. It's so gratifying. Brothers fighting, family fighting, and getting them back together. getting them focused on what really matters and showing them how to execute, get the tension out of the relationship. And then we get to save lives with our health business.
Right.
We've saved dozens of people that were told they were going to die within 4 to 6 months. We can't talk about it, you know that, but we do it. And then people come back, they get their life back.
Right.
So for me, my legacy is being bold enough and committed enough and work hard enough that I can do all those things and love the people I get to do it with. And I think that's where people don't really know me, but I love my team. It's just, I love what you're doing, dude. I just love being in the game.
I appreciate that.
Because there's plenty of people that are just throwing stones, or they're sitting on the sidelines, or they're terrified, or they're too lazy. We're grinders, man.
Yeah.
We're innovators. We're pioneers. If we were way back, you and I'd be on a ship sailing across the sea in a Viking boat. Like that's what we want to be, right?
Yeah.
I want to be known as a guy that never gave up. And I was a great example to people on how to do it.
I feel that, brother. I feel it.
Yeah.
Brother, as we wrap up here, if there's one person listening to this podcast that resonates with today's message, what is that one thing you can leave them with?
Well, all activities fall belief. Low belief, low activities. High belief, high energy. Then you just need the commitment to pursue it. This world is a world of knocking people's belief out of them. And what I would encourage people to do is don't concede and give up dreaming. Just put the action behind the dream. Don't let anybody talk you out of the thing you want to create or you want to do. When you lose your belief, you literally lose your life because you just give up on things. So never stop believing about what's possible. And then just put all your activity behind it and don't give a shit what anybody says.
Amazing. It's amazing. Where can people find you?
At Brandon M. Dawson on my Instagram. You can go to my YouTube channel, Brandon Dawson. And my wife is killing the social game. She's made me step up. So we're really putting a full court press on all of our social. Or you can go to 10X Health System. You can find us there on our Instagram as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Which we'll have all those links down below.
Yeah.
Brandon, this was a fantastic interview, man. I felt it, and I appreciate you coming here and sharing your message.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on your show.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Guys, you heard it from Brandon. Belief, right? You guys hear me talk all the time. I'm a Christian, and you don't live by sight. You live through faith. That's no different than belief. You got to continue to believe in yourself. You got to believe in others. There's many things that we talked about on this podcast that will change your life, that will change your business. Make sure you subscribe, share this podcast with everyone, follow Brandon, the 10X team, and we'll see you for the next one.